All right, we are live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Zoom. And
Good morning, everyone.
I have to turn off my sound over here. I don't know how to do that. Okay, here we go. No, yes, no. I think I turned it off. I don't want to hear that echo. So how's everybody doing? It's been 2 weeks since we've gathered in our Zoom room.
Hope everyone had a wonderful 4th of July and were able to celebrate with family and friends.
Dad came over. I made hamburgers. Yeah, I made hamburger for him, and we had Beyond Burger for us, which my brother proceeded to tell me was not very healthy because of all, the I don't know, it's processed,
Right.
So I have to do some investigation on that. Hence, we're going to be talking about nutrition for the next couple of months, probably, because there is so much to be covered in the nutritional area. And I've been on a journey probably since I was 25. No, it was probably a lot earlier than that, to lose weight, and to get in shape. And I think my focus when I was a teenager was to lose weight and look good. But as I've aged, it's more to be fit and healthy and look good. But I don't think you can. Yeah, I think the health is the most important thing,
I agree.
And there are healthy fat people.
Sorry?
I want to be healthy and at least, able to touch my toes. So we're going to talk about nutrition. I'm going to pull up Facebook on here so I can see if anybody is with us today, since we are able to go live into Living Well and Wise. Last time, 2 weeks ago, we couldn't. There was glitches all over because I was using a Chromebook laptop thingy remotely from New Hampshire, which was a great trip. All right, this one is on. Okay, there we go. Now I can see if somebody's with us or not. So we decided to focus on just sort of an introduction to nutrition and the government's role in telling us what to eat as Americans. We all know that right now, our standard American diet is sad because I don't know that people pay attention to the guidelines, and we're really good at making excuses for what we eat, and what tastes good. And I deserve this. And I don't do it that often, but I think when you add up all of those little times where you put something in your mouth that maybe isn't good for your body or isn't helping your body in any way, I think we'd be surprised at how often we do that and make excuses for ourselves. And the government has been working since 1894 to help us understand, what the good foods are for us. And I think you're going to be amazed at how it's changed over time. And it's almost laughable when you look back at the early stages of that. But before we begin, we should talk about diffusers and what's in your diffuser today. What's in your diffuser? What's in your diffuser? That could be another jingle. Okay. I decided to do a diffuser blend that would help curb my appetite, which is, I don't really need to curb my appetite right now because I'm drinking coffee and I'm never hungry in the morning. But, about noon, 1 o'clock, I get hungry. So I put in grapefruit and lemon and a little ginger, because ginger is very, very strong. But all three of those have properties of helping to suppress your appetite. And I think diffusing them is one way, but probably a better way would be to add a couple drops of grapefruit into your water and drink it that way, or lemon, or citrus oils are really good for that. And I don't know if I have handy dandy the Vitality drops. I do. Sorry for the picture here. I've got the Vitality Energy Drops. This one is the Jade Lemon and Berry. And this one, the label came off. It's what's SP Tangerine? But I don't know.
Spearmint.
Spearmint Tangerine. Yep. And these are great. And my favorite one is the grapefruit one that they have, which those these are the ones that contain electrolytes. The last batch.
No, the other ones
The
do.
other ones.
Vitality drops do, the energy drops do not.
Gotcha. So I like the grapefruit ones the best. But just a little helpful hint to help curb the appetite, get you through, you know, if water isn't doing it, add a little something to your water.
Well, I have in the back right here, lemon and peppermint in mine. I just wanted to keep it simple.
Mhm.
Both are good for curbing your appetite. So
And
that's what I chose this morning. And I like to put a little lemon and peppermint in my water sometimes too.
mhm. Yeah, and that's great. Those two are great for boosting your energy level too, and your focus and concentration. So good combination. Mary, you got anything in yours today?
Same thing I always do, cinnamon and orange, and then lemongrass in the bathrooms.
And all three of those are appetite suppressing. So
Are they?
Yes, they are.
cinnamon and orange together, that's perfect. I love that combination. It reminds me of
There you go.
fall.
It's like,
You
I
look
should
adorable.
change it occasionally, but I never do.
That's okay. We love our favorites. Your hair looks really cute today.
Well, I put a band, what do you call this? A headband on because it's so long, it's in my eyes.
Yeah, but it looks cute. We can see your beautiful
Yes.
face.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get into nutrition, the basics. Week one, the basics. And as we talk, if you have an idea of where you want to go next, and that's for all of us, like if it's like, oh, that should be our next topic, shout it out, because we have a list of things where we can go with nutrition, but no game plan for next week yet. So if you hear something, you really want to know more about something, we would be happy to research it and find out. So USDA guidelines, they didn't actually start under that title. That those federal agencies came about a little bit later, but for over 100 years, they've been telling us what to eat. And what to eat, what to drink. And the specific message has really kind of changed over the years to reflect the advances in nutrition, the science behind it. So I don't know who was making these recommendations to begin with without the science. You know, somebody just decided this is what you should eat. But there was, as nutrition science evolved, there was a greater recognition of how the diet can really play a role in disease prevention. But in the beginning, it wasn't like that. So the first nutritional guidelines were published in 1894 by Dr. Wilbur Olin Atwater. And it came out as like a farmer's bulletin. I'm not sure how it was sent out to people. 10 years later, he sent out a publication called The Principles of Nutrition and Nutritive Value of Food. And he advocated variety, proportionality, and moderation, measuring calories, and an efficient, affordable diet that focused on nutrient-rich foods and less fat, sugar, and starch. Well, that sounds really reasonable to me. And that's sort of what we do now, right? We're limiting our starches, our sugars, our salt. We're looking at the nutritional value of food. But I think back then, certain foods were considered nutritional that we know are maybe not now. So that stayed for a while. He had a couple of other ones, a new guide in 1916, Food for Young Children. Actually, that was by Carolyn Hunt. And they started to categorize foods into these categories that we know, the milk, the meat, cereals, vegetables, fruits, that sort of thing. And then the fatty foods and sugars and sugary foods. And then How to Select Food in 1917 promoted those groups to adults, and guidelines remained in place until 1920. And then in 1920, they did a lot of emphasis on food storage to prevent foodborne illnesses. So probably this is when we decided that certain foods needed to be cold and kept cold so they wouldn't spoil. But this was before people had refrigerators or freezers. They had ice boxes. And so even then, like, how cold can you keep that ice box over time? The ice is melting and you've got to get more and keep things going. But one of their advice was to place milk and meat in the coldest section of the refrigerator and to use enough ice. Again, seems like common sense, right? In the 1930s, they started to focus more on the vitamins, essential vitamins and minerals in the various foods for health. Scientists were discovering the benefits of these different nutrients, and the publications started to focus more on vitamins and minerals. Calcium and phosphorus, and their role in bone and teeth development is just one example of that. So again, little incremental changes over time based on what they're finding out, what they're seeing nutrition wise in the science. In 1940s, the Basic 7 was published, and these this kind of cracked me up, and Kathy, you laughed too about these. I'm going to share the screen in a moment as soon as I figure out where I put everything. Where are the photos? Okay, here are the photos, and get that out of the way so I can get the whole photo in there. Yeah, this, you're gonna laugh at some of these. Okay, where am I? There we go. Sorry, there's a lot to, I'm out of practice. I haven't been here in what, 3 weeks? Share the screen and share. Okay, so can you see this group? There's 7 groups. So first group 1, green and yellow vegetables. Group 2, oranges, tomatoes, grapefruits. Group 3, potatoes and other vegetables and fruits. 4, milk and milk products. 5, meat, poultry, fish or eggs, so basically your proteins. Group 6, bread, flour, and cereals, your grains. And group 7, butter and fortified margarine.
Okay, so what is fortified margarine?
Well, fortified margarine was, they added vitamin A to it.
Okay.
So that's what that group was. So we look at this today and we think, that group 7 probably should go, right? It's butter is, I think butter was created by the devil because I love it and it's hard to resist, but we know that too much butter is not going to be good for us. It's too fatty and it's got the trans fats in there. It's not a healthy fat. Tastes good, but so it was interesting to me that the green and yellow vegetables were separated from the other vegetables. And that group 2 is this fruit here, oranges, grapefruit, tomatoes. Now, maybe those all share common properties, I believe. I'm not sure what they are, but they seem like vitamin C kind of fruits and vegetables, or, well, tomato, debatable fruit, right? And then potatoes are lumped in with all the other vegetables. So beets would be in there too, carrots. So more of the root vegetables, I suppose. And then the other fruits. So I think that feels like a leftover category to me, that like, well, we're not sure. We know the oranges and the tomatoes are good for you. And we know that the green and yellow vegetables are good for you. we're going to lump everything else in that category because we don't have the science on those yet, right? The milk products, and I can't quite see what that says at the bottom there. Fluid, evaporated, dried milk, or cheese. And I don't think yogurt was quite a thing quite at this time. And if it was, it wasn't a popular choice. Our group 5 is meat, poultry, fish, or eggs. And they also include the dried beans, peas, nuts, and peanut butter. So obviously that's the protein group. And then the bread, flour, and cereals, natural whole grains or enriched. I can't read the last couple words there. Or natural. So even back then they were talking about whole grains and not the processed, but the enriched stuff. I think unfortunately when you call something enriched, a lot of times we know it's been processed. I don't know. But that group 7, butter and fortified margarine, it just cracks me up. So with this basic 7 group, this came out in 1943, and it was with us until the mid 50s. It helped to introduce the nutritional guide promoting these basic 7. And we already talked about those different groups. So another one was preventing food waste. So remember, we're on the, this is after World War II, or during and just after World War II. So preventing food waste, buying fresh fruit in season were also recurring messages during this decade. And the wartime efforts were influencing that message. They also encouraged the public to secure the benefits of eating a good breakfast to start a good day. So this is the beginning of, breakfast is the most important meal.
That's still in place today, right?
Yeah, I think so. One of the books that I've been reading and following for my plant-based diet, which is only, 75% plant-based for me at this point, talks about how you should eat like a king for breakfast, as a working man for lunch, and as a pauper for dinner. So meaning most of your nutrients and your greatest calories come in the morning so that you can work them off, and you don't need as much at night. And
Makes sense.
Sometimes we tend to do just the opposite. Very small breakfast, a medium-sized lunch, and then a big dinner, which then all of that heavy calories and things, that meal just sits on you all night. So it kind of makes sense to eat lighter at night, I suppose. It's hard. That's a hard thing after years of eating the way we've been eating. Let's see, what else is on here? It emphasized eating with the family in the 40s and overall healthy meals. And it wasn't until like 1950 and then 1956 specifically that they came out with a daily food guide. It's food for fitness, they say. And it came up with the 4 groups. Now, I remember these 4 groups. This is what I was taught in school. This was the nutrition eating plan that we were taught. Do you remember that, Mary? Was that the milk, 4 food groups, the milk, the meat, the bread and cereal group, and the fruit and vegetable group.
Vegetables, yeah.
Yeah, so that was what we grew up on, and it lasted for quite a long time. This one was almost 40 years that we went with this group. And this one specifically talks about serving sizes for children under 9, children 9 to 12, teenagers and adults, with the variation in milk. Mostly it's 2 or 3 cups, but for teenagers, they say 4 cups, 4 or more cups of milk. The meat group, 2 or more servings, bread group, 4 or more servings, vegetable and fruit group, 4 or more servings. And they lump all of those together. And then they say, plus the other foods that are needed to complete meals to provide additional food energy and other food values. And in my notes, it also says to make them almost more palatable. So they talk about salad dressings, cooking oils, sauces, jellies, syrups. And so those are the extras. And they don't talk about how much or how little. But I think for some people, it would be like, oh, let's just add some of this and not really count the nutritional or non-nutritional value of all those extra things, right? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
That, that just opened it up for people to, you know, drown their plate in ketchup or syrup or something like that. So, so between 1890 and 1970, although primary nutritional guidance remained consistent with the variety of foods, the balance, and the moderation, it was modified each time by the introduction of new scientific evidence. And then the audience segments for these communications have expanded over time to address nutritional needs of specific subpopulations and situations. In the 1970s, we had the Senate Select Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs. And they finally discovered that healthy diets could place an important role in promoting health, increasing productivity, and reducing healthcare costs. So now they're looking at the money as well. And the government has played a part in this role for years and years and years, like trying to promote these different food groups and get people to eat healthy as they promoted it. But what was healthy at one point in the 40s or the 50s changed, especially with the convenience of processed foods and TV dinners and things like that. So in the 50s, when those things started to come out, I think the nutritional value of some of those foods decreased because they were processing more for convenience, and people started to not cook as much because they would just heat up a TV dinner. I'm not saying that's everybody, but I would say probably every family sometime in the 50s and 60s relied on frozen dinners or frozen foods to make things easier, maybe just once a week or maybe once a month, but it was part of people's diet. I remember my mom serving us TV dinners, but it wasn't every night. She cooked a lot, but every once in a while we'd get this TV dinner. I was not a fan. In 1977, the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs decided that too much fat, too much sugar or salt, and can be linked directly to heart disease, cancer, obesity, stroke, and other killer diseases. So 1977 is when they started to get the science behind the correlation between these things. The new dietary goals were to increase carbohydrate intake to 55 to 60% of your calories, decrease dietary fat to less than 30%, with a reduction of the intake of saturated fats. So this is when they started looking really at saturated, polyunsaturated, all those different kinds of fats, monounsaturated fats, and decrease cholesterol. So late 1970s, we started looking at cholesterol. Also to decrease your sugar intake to 15% of calories and decrease salt to 3 grams a day. And so I think, Kathy, we were talking about this last night. To avoid overweight, you consume only as much energy as expended. So calories in equals calories out. If you bring too many calories in, and not expend as many calories, you're going to get fat. You're going to get overweight. If you expend more energy than you take in, you're going to lose weight. And that seems very simplistic because we know that all calories are not equal. So you could be minimizing your calories and losing weight, but also not keeping up with your health. It's going to affect your health depending on the quality the nutritious value of the foods that you're eating. And then increasing the consumption of complex carbohydrates, that started in 1977, from 28% of intake to 48%. Reduce the consumption of refined and processed sugars by about 45%. Reduce overall fat consumption, saturated fat, cholesterol. Let's see. Limit the intake of sodium. I'm repeating. I had several sources, sorry. And then in the second half of the 20th century and the early 21st century, we've seen incremental cumulative changes to the content of dietary guidance, as well as the process by which it's formulated. So in 1980, they came up with these 7 principles. So variety, maintain your ideal weight. And this was the cover of the guidelines. So the pages refer to inside this booklet that was available. Avoid too much fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol. Eat foods with adequate starch and fiber. Avoid too much sugar. Avoid too much sodium. If you drink alcohol, do so in moderation. So that is the beginning in, I think, 1980 was this group.
Well, that sounds like the period of do everything in moderation.
Yes, yes.
As far as intake, as well as exercise and everything else.
Yep. And Kathy, what year are you taking over? 92?
92.
Okay, so there was a focus here to offer ideas for incorporating a variety of foods in the diet to provide essential nutrients while maintaining recommended body weight. And again, it was all about the sugar, the fat, saturated fat. That became the big message. Okay. And in 1985, I'll give you 85 and 90 here. Well, here's 85. Again, most of them are the same, and I don't really see anything different. This was just the cover. I think it's pretty much the same.
They probably just changed the cover of it to something.
Yep. And then in
linking them together.
1990, here was the cover. I think this one is new. Choose a diet with plenty of fruits, vegetables, and grain products. So 92 or 1990s, this was 1990, they started focusing more on those fruits, vegetables, and grains. I think that's the big difference here in 92 or 1990. And then finally in 92, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. We'll go back to that in a minute because we haven't seen our faces in a while. Kathy's going to start talking about 1992, the more modern day, the last, what is that, 20 years or so? Really?
Right. So in 1992, the USDA showed their first pyramid guide and they attempted to express the recommendation of servings for each group, which they didn't do the numbers of servings prior to that. So, there were 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, and pasta occupied the large group at the bottom there, you can see. And then it was followed by 3 to 5 servings of vegetables and 2 to 4 servings of fruits. Then moving up to milk, yogurt, and cheese. So yogurt must have come into play sometime in late 80s, early 90s, where more people were eating yogurt. So that was only 2 to 3 servings. And then it's followed by meat, poultry, fish, dried beans, eggs, and nuts is 2 to 3 servings. And then at the very top would be where you have your oils, your fats, your oils, your sweets, things like that in the very top, which are very limited.
Yeah, but when I looked at this, when I was teaching and I was making a joke, it's like, wait, all of these little specks are sugar, so I can eat all of those. not really, because if
But
you,
when you're eating the fats too, you know, you're looking for the more nutritional ones. But look at that big difference with all those grains at the bottom. They're not all necessarily healthy grains. We do see some white bread in there, but could be whole wheat, who knows?
yeah, I don't think that that was a big thing quite yet of really looking at the whole grains. I mean, it was always there, but you know, I grew up on Wonder Bread and probably until the 70s or 80s when I started to look at wheat and all of that. So,
Yeah, we
but
used it into the 80s as well, the white bread, Wonder Bread, you know, builds a strong body 12 ways. Is that what, or was that milk?
because it was enriched and it had all these, you know, vitamins and minerals. I want to point out something that maybe I hadn't really noticed before, but if you look at the key with the circles for the fat and the triangles for the sugar, that it's sprinkled throughout the actual pyramid. So the protein group is going to have more fat in it. They don't have any sugar in there. The milk group has both fat and sugar in there. The vegetables here, some fat, right? Sparingly, not very much fat in these vegetables. And then the fruits have more sugar, of course, and then sprinkled throughout the grain or both of them. So I taught this pyramid for a number of years to my fifth graders. And I don't ever remember noticing, like I
I
know
never
it's
noticed that
there,
either.
but I guess I didn't put the significance there other than up at the top. But it is showing you the fat and the sugar that you're getting in the other food groups. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And I always, I mean, when looking at the fruits in the past too, I never really noticed any berries in their pictures.
Right.
I mean, they always put the apples, oranges, grapes, things like that. But now I think more people are eating berries because they're, you know, have been proven to have higher antioxidant levels
Right.
in
I,
them. So, but yeah,
I think one of the things about berries is it's actually its own food group. It's we call it a fruit, but it's a different kind of fruit because it's a berry and it has its seeds on the outside, kind of thing. So it's almost a different classification. But I don't know why they wouldn't have included it in here because you're right. Those are amazing.
and maybe they didn't realize back in the early 90s, late 80s that the berries are really have a lower glycemic index,
Yeah.
which means their sugar isn't just dumped into your system quickly.
I think blueberries are one of like the top foods that you should eat for your health now.
Right, exactly.
No mention of it at all here.
So a modified food pyramid was proposed for adults over 70 and accounted for the changes in their diets with their age by emphasizing water consumption as well as nutrient dense and high fiber foods. So there were alterations to these food pyramids depending on the people. Okay, so someone my age or younger is going to eat more than somebody in their 70s and 80s. As we get older, it seems like our plate shrinks a bit, you know, at least I've noticed that with my mom and my in-laws.
I eat more than my husband.
Do you eat
Proud of
healthier
it,
than your
but
husband?
do I what?
Do you eat healthier than your husband?
We eat the same thing. He's on board lately with eating healthier, but I do eat a little bit more, and I think I'm more active than he is. You know, and he's 18 years older than me, so he falls into the over 70 group, and he's just noticed lately that he's not as hungry.
Right.
He doesn't fill his plate as much, so I look forward to that.
But you still have to remain active in that group as well.
I like what you said about recommendations for water because we've mentioned this before that your ability to recognize thirst diminishes as you grow older, but your body's need for water does not diminish. So you have to almost force yourself and push yourself to keep hydrated, to keep drinking water throughout the day and get the right levels. So
Exactly. So in 1995, here we go. There's the new, it's kind of like a mesh of the pyramid, but it's kind of, just tells us what things are supposed to be good for us. And so at that time, they talked about balance the food you eat with the physical activity to maintain or improve your weight. Like you discussed earlier, or you said earlier, calories in, calories out versus calories out will depend on if you maintain your weight or energy in, energy out, or if you gain weight or lose weight. So depending on how active you are. You should choose a diet with plenty of grain products, vegetables, and fruits. They still believed that. A diet low in saturated fat and cholesterol. Again, we're staying with those same things, but with maybe a little different spin on it for some of them. Eat a variety of foods. Choose a diet moderate in salt and sodium. I thought salt and sodium were kind of the same thing, but choose a diet moderate in sugars. So now they're saying moderate as opposed to lower. And if you drink alcoholic beverages, do so in moderation. And we heard that before in the other slides that you had shown us here too.
yeah, I think the basics are the same, and then just the quantities change overall.
Right. So in 2000, was the first time the number of guidelines was expanded from the original 7 to 10. So physical activity was separated from body weight to recognize there are health benefits of regular physical activity independent of energy balance. So here we have aim for fitness, build a healthy base, and choose sensibly. So I think, aiming for fitness is our exercise, building a healthy base is both exercise and choosing your foods sensibly. So I think that's why that one's right in the middle. At least that's what it means to me.
The
Do you have a different take on that?
ABCs: aim, build, choose. My feeling about this, however, is it's so open for interpretation that it's easy to justify bad choices again, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't have specifics, but I like that it's simple: aim for fitness, build a healthy base, and choose sensibly. But it's up for interpretation. Like, what does that mean? Build a healthy base.
Right.
It's not specific for people. And I think if, we're talking general public, um, I think you really have to delve inside whatever's in this booklet.
Right. So for me, building that healthy base is looking at your fitness as well as what you're choosing as far as your food.
Right.
So that's why I thought I'm interpreting it as your healthy base is both of those things together, your fitness as well as your food choices to build a healthy body, to be more health, to build health instead of choosing bad things, whether if you're not exercising and you're becoming overweight, and then those bad choices in food even expand that more. And then here we go. Now we're along the path of, obesity, disease, as far as cancer and heart issues, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I'm looking at it maybe from a different way, but
So it's open to interpretation.
exactly, I
I'm looking
agree.
at it from a healthy way, and I'm looking at it, how can I get out of eating healthy? How can I justify my bad actions? I want to go backwards for 1 second and take a look at this. You mentioned yesterday how this is like the Olympic rings. Of course,
That's what it looks like to me.
but I thought I said I had the question. I wonder if this was near an Olympic year where the U.S. hosted, and this came out. What did I say? 1995? Is that what we said? Yeah, 1995
Yes.
came out, and we were hosting the 1996 Summer Olympics. So I wonder if this was a precursor to kind of bring people on board because it reminded them of the Olympics and like the healthy uh,
Good athletes.
and things like that. So just kind of I don't know, that just came to mind. So I had to look it up. So 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia, where, yeah, was when we had those. So anyway, now we're on to what, 2005?
We are on to 2005 with the My Pyramid. And I kind of like this picture, and but in 2005, it was updated to this My Pyramid from the standard pyramid that we saw earlier from that one. Okay, and
I want to take a moment to look at this. So again, like just comparatively, it looks like the milk and the meat, I'm pointing to my screen, you can't see that. The milk and the meat are kind of equal. Vegetables more than fruit, and then 6 to 11 servings of grains. Just putting that in there so we can compare, because this to me is a little bit harder to interpret as far as serving sizes and things like that. But you have
so
information.
the first thing you noticed too, like you said, was the share of this pyramid or the share of the other pyramid compared to this one, as far as for the grains, is a little bit narrower, it seems like, doesn't it? Because it's pretty much equal to the vegetables and milk portions, but it's a little bit narrower, whatever.
But if you think about it,
more narrow.
These three together, grains, fruits, and vegetables, are more than half, and then the milk looks like it's equal to vegetables. I don't know what they were thinking there, but that surprises me. And that yellow is the oils and sugars and fats and
right. So that's a very limited amount, which those are our fats. That's what it should be, as in this other pyramid, but this was fats and sugars up in the tip of the other pyramid. So there, like you said, there's a small sliver for oils and fats, and the milk and dairy are next, and then meat and beans. And the very tip of that, the little white portion at the top, is represented for other items that have sugar in it, or more starches such as candy, alcohol, or just any other additional food group.
It surprises me how much the meat and beans section has shrunk, and how much the milk has grown here.
I agree with you on that, because of the fact that, and everyone has their own way of eating and drinking and whatever, but with the milk nowadays, unless it's an organic type of milk, or you can't really call nuts nut milk, but considered nut milk, but it's not dairy.
I think they're talking about cow's milk here. They're talking
about cow's milk here. And depending on if it's an organic, comes from a cow that was grass-fed, grass-finished, what's the quality of that milk?
Right. There's, I think,
or cheese or other dairy.
Probably about the time where like lactose intolerant became more prevalent. And so there's a reason for that. Just like there's a reason why more people are gluten sensitive, there's a reason. So again, like you just specified, the grass-fed, grass-finished cow's milk, whatever, is going to be healthier than those that are eating grains or eating things that are going to be transferred into the milk. So this was, I think this is when lactose intolerant and lactose sensitivities started to be more prevalent. And probably because they were recommending us drink so much milk or eat so much cheese and all of that.
And along with this, I believe at this time also came like a brochure, a companion brochure that was called Finding Your Way to a Healthier You. So that was also issued to the general public back then.
I also want to emphasize it says steps to a healthier you, and hence the steps here. But what this portion of the pyramid actually represented was fitness, was activity.
Exactly.
So climbing those stairs, but those steps include activity, not just eating healthy
Mhm.
alone. So
Okay, so there was some other things going on with, different organizations or different dietary guidelines. So, but the main thing was the main gist of all that was, maintaining an energy balance over time to achieve and sustain a healthy body weight and consumption of nutrient-dense foods and beverages. So that was in 2008 where they were talking about that and wanted you to know that depending on what you put into your body, how you're exercising will have an effect on your health, really. To me, that's what that kind of goes along with. So maintaining your energy levels with your food and exercise, that will all help to benefit your health. Okay, and we are moving right along to 2011 was when they started the My Plate. They got rid of the pyramid and just took the plate and cut it into 4 sections. Half of it, as you can see, are fruits and vegetables, and the other half are the grains and protein. So with your fruits, they're telling you here to eat fruits of all different colors. The richer the color, I think, the more nutrient dense they're supposed to be.
eat the rainbow.
Eat the rainbow and go for the fruit instead of the juice. When you're having a juice, most of those juices are added, with more sugar.
Well, they're more concentrated. So like if you were to eat an orange, you would get benefit of the fiber and the juice and the vitamins in there. But to drink a cup of orange juice, that's the equivalent of, I don't know how many, but like 6 or 7 oranges. So you're having way too much sugar when you drink the juice because it's like having too many of a good thing, right? Too much of a good thing
Right.
is not good.
And of course, again, with the vegetables, the more colors and types that you eat, the better. So they also say aim to eat mostly non-starchy vegetables because the starches, the carbohydrates in your body turns to sugar. So if they have more carbs or are more starchy, like white potatoes, they tend to turn to sugar quicker and more sugar in your body. And we all know sugar is the root cause of disease, right?
Yes. And I think, I can debate that at a later time about potatoes having a bad rap. Um, I think potatoes have a bad rap when we smother them in butter and sour cream, but on the plant-based diets that I've been, researching and looking at, they really promote potatoes, sweet potatoes and regular potatoes.
I believe the sweet potatoes have always been promoted as a healthier,
Right.
more nutritious.
They have different nutrients, but
Yeah.
but regular potatoes get a bad rap, and they're not as bad as you think, in moderation, again, with some of these other food combinations. But I'm not going to debate that right now. I don't have the facts behind it, but I just know that in several of the books, potatoes is a staple in a plant-based diet rather than in this type of diet where, yeah, that too much of the good thing of those potatoes has too much of the carbs that you don't want. So
Right. With grains, we see it's kind of equal to vegetables, maybe a little bit smaller, but it does say to eat mostly whole grains. Refined grains like white bread and white rice have less nutrition. Whole grains have more fiber, iron, and B vitamins. And then they talk about protein. You know, they used to say 4 to 5 ounces, whatever, was like about the size of your palm. But then again, it depends on how big your palm is, right?
Yeah.
So a palm size amount at lunch and dinner is all you need. So, and your protein could be beans, nuts, fish, chicken are all good lean choices.
And the thing about protein here, I think, is the first time where they are minimizing again. Well, they've done before, but minimizing protein, because in the 40s and 50s, I think that was the birth of the meat and potatoes era, where, you know, we load up on the meat and the potatoes for energy. You know, the people who, there's a lot more people working more physical labor who might need that type of energy. But as the science comes through, you know, eating a lot of beef and white potatoes is detrimental for your health. That's probably why we had more heart attacks back then, in that era, not back then, but in that time frame. And that became a way of living, which I think some people embrace still. You know, meat, potatoes, vegetables on the plate. This plate looks a lot like the first plate that we saw, right?
Mhm.
Except for one big change. So what is missing from this plate that we saw in the past?
Our dairy.
Dairy as a whole category. So dairy can fall into proteins a lot of times, right?
Mhm.
And that if you're eating enough vegetables and eating the variety of vegetables, you're going to get the calcium in there. But if we go back to this group here, which is that the plate? No, there was another one with a plate, but milk, meat, fruit and vegetables together, and bread and
Can you
cereal.
see this one? Here's the dairy was the milk off here.
Well, no, I'm talking about in the past.
Oh, in the past.
about
Well, but I
big-
mean, in relation to before in this one.
So the fruits and vegetables now became their own category, split, you know, fruits and vegetables. And now milk is just taken out of the equation completely. And here's another version of that where they put the dairy on the side as, you know, a cup of milk or something like that. And I think that's probably more important for kids. However, I think younger families now are relying on plant-based milks for that more and more. Not
Mhm.
everybody, but yeah, it goes back to those basics. Fruits, vegetables, things that we can grow, things from the earth, grains, and then the proteins, which may or may not include animal products. You could do it very easily with the nuts, the beans, the peas. What is the legume called? Remember we heard that word a couple weeks ago? Legume is the plant, but the seed is called I forget what it was.
Oh,
Remember, it surprised us and we looked up, what does that mean? Well,
yeah, I think I forgot. I thought it started with an S, but I could be wrong.
I don't remember. I can.
Oh, well.
And then
Mine was.
because I'm trying to do more plant-based, I decided to look at what a vegan plate would look like. And they have guidelines for that, which is kind of nice, right? And so instead of calling it proteins, they call it legumes and nuts, but really it's proteins. And
Mhm.
everything else is the same except for the milk or the dairy group is replaced by water. So I would say I do drink water almost 100% of the time with my meals. I don't drink juice. I might have wine in addition, a small amount of wine, in moderation, of course. But the plant-based food plate, we'll probably investigate this a lot more in the future on another talk. But some of the plant-based recommendations are here as well. But I guess I'm going to stop sharing. We're done with that part. I think what I want to know, inquiring what minds want to know, if we've finished all of this, and how much do you trust the US government to tell you what to eat? They're making the guidelines for us, right? Because we're not capable of deciding this on our own, or just because most people don't take the time. And but do people actually follow this? How much do people like say, oh, the government says I should have this many calories or this many servings?
I really don't think that people follow it as much as we might think they would. I mean, their guidelines, they're not telling us we have to do it that way, but they are giving us guidelines to follow to promote health. But then again, it depends on when you see your doctor, do you have any issues as far as health issues? And what's the best nutrition and exercise plan for that person? Whether they have heart disease, if someone's had a heart attack, they want you to go through cardiac rehab. And with cardiac rehab, they usually, depending on where you're going for that, they usually will also talk to you about nutrition. And again, maybe sticking more to those guidelines with some alterations along with it. It's not going to be a dead set thing for each individual, each person. They're going to try to individualize it, which I think most hospitals or most places will do, will individualize it for each person and where they're at. And I think those are the people that if they truly want to get healthy again or be healthy again, they will follow those guidelines a little more stricter. If you've grown up with, in a home where health and exercise were part of it, part of your upbringing, then I think those are the people that might stick to certain things.
Mhm.
Like you said, you're on a plant-based diet, so you're sticking towards certain things. I was a vegan for probably 4 years, and I'm still mostly vegetarian, but not strict raw vegan, where I was strict raw vegan. My husband had a biochemical reoccurrence cancer of prostate cancer. We ended up going to a clinic in Arizona. And in order to make him healthier, we both followed a strict raw vegan food plan. And it wasn't as difficult as we thought, because prior to that, we were seeing a chiropractor that also talked to us about nutrition. So we were pretty much on that path. The only thing we removed were the meats and, chicken, fish. We went strict, and we didn't cook anything as far as cooking it in the oven. We had a dehydrator that we warmed our things in. So we were never at the real hot temperatures like in an oven. We haven't used a microwave in probably 15 years. So yeah, we've cut out a lot of that. But anyways, I think, people that have the specific needs will follow things closer than the people that are going along thinking, yeah, I'm pretty healthy. I do this, I do that. I eat things in moderation. So they might not follow the specific guidelines.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a topic for a future chat, is that there are a lot of people who think there's nothing wrong with eating in the same way that they were raised as kids, that the way their parents or their grandparents cooked and served foods and the types of foods. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday, how in effect, it could be that people, even though they didn't have the same guidelines as we have now, that back in the 40s and 50s, they may have been eating healthier just because the food was not processed, or there was not the introduction of GMOs, which are designed
Pesticides as well.
to produce more abundance of a plant by artificial chemical methods that does things to the actual nutrition, value of the food.
Exactly.
So it could be that people were eating healthier back then, but because the food has changed so much, I mean, just look at wheat. And I go back to the einkorn wheat and the einkorn products that I use sometimes for that, which is a ancient grain that hasn't been genetically modified, that is more nutritious and more easily able to be
Digested.
digested, that people don't realize that food has changed so much over time to the detriment of it.
And even with our,
The people who are producing these foods are benefiting because they're able to produce more and sell more, but the nutritional value of it has decreased.
and the things that are added to it, and maybe not added directly to the meat itself, but if you, like you said, you look at our cows, what are they fed? They're given antibiotics because they're all herded together and they're trying to kill off disease and things, but it's also altering the nutrition of our foods, of our meat that we get from a cow or from our chickens or turkeys or whatever. Our fish, they're in,
Yeah, so just like, we try to detox by not using chemicals in our personal products and our cleaning products, you also have to be aware. Bye, Mary.
Hi, Mary. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
You have to be aware of what chemicals and what things are in the food that you don't realize are there.
Mhm.
So I think that's a topic for another day. We kind of rounded out this whole idea of the USDA recommendations over time, how they've changed, how they've become more science-based. But yet we haven't delved into the quality of the food that we are being asked to consume in these different quantities, more fruits, more vegetables. But what is organic better? Probably, yes. Is grass-fed, grass-finished better? Yes. But I think a lot of people don't know that, or they don't believe it, or they can't afford it. But actually, if you get rid of a lot of the processed foods, you have more room for the healthy, fresh, organic.
Well, again, you're looking at, can they afford it? Can they afford being healthy and spending that extra? Or can they afford illness and the costs associated with being sick?
What is it? You pay the farmer or you pay the doctor, right? Isn't that the saying? So I think we'll explore more of that in future weeks. And Kathy, you and I will chat about what's going to come up next week.
Okay.
There's so much on nutrition that we can talk about. And I just love doing these. I love talking to people on Zoom and sharing things that maybe I'm not an expert in, but I start to educate myself. And if I can help somebody else by educating them a little bit, then so be it. And I feel good about that. So,
Right. We're here for education. We're not doctors. We're not nutritionists. We're just reading the same as and researching the same as anyone else can.
and we may have an opinion, but doesn't mean you have to agree with us,
That's okay. Everyone has their opinions and that's fine.
or they should.
We
Anyway,
appreciate that.
they should have opinions. So,
That's right.
all right. I am off to the golf course.
Have fun.
I'm getting some physical activity, which is not the same as exercise. Dick's in a program for exercising his health, his heart, and they said point blank, golf is not exercise because it doesn't raise your heart rate unless you're walking, and we're definitely
Unless you're walking and carrying your clubs.
which we're definitely not. We're doing the golf cart. So everybody have a great week, and I hope you come back to visit us next week on Saturday Zoom, where we're going to keep talking about nutrition.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.